welcome to another episode of Prime Time. I've got Nick beside me. Dad's still stuck in Melbourne on a high from the Melbourne Cup, so he's not with us today. But we were just in Melbourne. We had a ripper of a week. We were there from Derby Day on the Saturday all the way to the Melbourne Cup Day. And we got up a little bit. It paid for the week.
It was good fun. There's nothing better than the Melbourne Cup. Much better than Everest.
I want to do it every year.
And just as a comparison, Sydney to Melbourne, Sydney, we don't get into the races. We don't get into the casino. We have a lot of trouble getting into nightclubs.
Yeah.
Melbourne, they let us in everywhere. They let the boys play.
Yeah, we go straight into Flemington, film whatever you want. Go to Crown, play a bit of poker if you want. You know, go out nightclubs. It's fine. It's a smaller pond, but they do, like you said, they let the boys play. We played, without a fight. Lovely tip from Auntie Lily. Thank you, Lily, if you're watching. But that got up. We had a good day on the punt, and now we're back into the swing of things in Sydney. Big few weeks coming up, so make sure you keep an eye out for some announcements. But let's get straight into it. Fan question of the week.
Fan question this week is the NBA regular season boring?
Is it too boring?
I think that you can make an argument that there's a period between after the start of the season and before the All-Star break, or even before the Christmas Day games, where it is very boring. You're just maybe checking updates to see the box score, but you're not really interested to see how your team goes. It's not the playoffs, and it's just they're just clocking up games for the sake of it.
The NBA know that they have this period between the playoffs and the start of the regular season. There's real start excitement of NBA launch, right? You get to figure out which teams are going well, and then it just goes into this lull period before everything starts to heat up. And that's why they put in this in-season tournament. They want to spark up a bit of excitement in the regular season.
I understand people will come at me and say, if you're a true NBA fan, you love every single game, you follow every single game of the season. But it's just, yes, I may be more of a casual fan than the average NBA fan. But then again, why would the NBA institute an NBA regular season tournament if they didn't know that there was a lull period where, interest lapses? They've put this in-season tournament in because they know it's going to draw more interest, especially in this period at the end of November, start of December, where they need to draw more eyes to the game. They can't wait till Christmas and they can't wait till the All-Star break in February.
Yeah, but does it actually, apart from the regular season games actually contributing to the in-season tournament, so they're all going to count as regular season games on your record, why is it going to be interesting? Why? Because they're playing for money for their franchises?
No, they're playing for money for themselves as well. The players get a bonus for winning. So there's some personal
So if you're
incentive.
on a $230 million max deal, you want an extra couple mil on the side?
Why wouldn't you? If you're going to be playing the game to win anyways, you may as well play a bit harder. But again, the NBA, who know the average comment around the regular season is, we'll just wait till the playoffs.
But even the All-Star break, while that has gone, the interest in that has declined over the years because it's just like players don't really care.
Yeah, they're trying to make something where players play harder and actually try and make the fans feel a bit more interested because they're going harder. And again, if the NBA didn't do this, what would people be thinking towards the end of November? That's just Halloween's over.
So the in-season tournament is pretty much an elimination-style tournament during the regular season. It's going to culminate to the best teams playing each other. It's a one-game elimination. It's not 7 games like the playoffs.
It's kind of like a March Madness for the NBA with the finals being in Vegas.
Yeah, so it should be interesting.
Yeah. We're going to be there.
We're going to be there down there in Vegas to cover the in-season tournament. But what we've been doing over the week, every week of the off-season, we've been doing the NRL Rumor Roundup. This week's NRL Rumor Roundup, we've got Mal Meninga set to be offered a contract extension to coach the Kangaroos all the way to the next World Cup.
Right off the back of getting pumped in the Pacific Nations Grand Final.
I don't understand how you beat a team the week before and then get pumped 30-0 the following week.
I don't understand how you can run Australian Kangaroos, have your team get pumped in the Grand Final, and then still re-sign the head coach. Maybe at least put a bit of pressure on him and make him coach for his job.
Put him on a conditional enrollment type thing. Put him on give him a little workplace warning.
He came out after the final and was like, I think the selector's got a bit too complacent. I'm like, mate, you're the selector. What is this? I don't understand.
Well, I mean, we saw Nathan Cleary floating around the Melbourne Cup.
He was missed.
They weren't full strength.
Doesn't matter.
The Kangaroos. Plus, you could say, Reece Walsh probably should have been in there.
They've made some poor selections
100%.
and they didn't pick the best team that they could have. And that falls on Mal Meninga, who definitely shouldn't be re-signed.
I'm going to say this is an unpopular opinion, but I don't think Mal Meninga can coach. But personally, when you actually think about it, I will arguably say Cameron Smith, Cooper Cronk, and Billy Slater.
Jonathan Thurston as well.
And Jonathan Thurston were superior coaches to Mal Meninga. They carried the Queensland team through that 8-year legacy that they had. And what does he really have to do with these players, these international players that are the best in the game? I don't think he can actually contribute much. Much like Brad Fittler, it's really just selections. If you make the right selections, and if you can't, you deserve to be sacked.
I agree with you. That Queensland side from 2006 to 2018, they had 3 immortals possibly, and probably they fielded the best team ever. So if he couldn't win
All he has to do is go out there, boys, do what you do.
hey, have a bit of fun.
Darren Lockyer, just lead the way out there, mate. What positionally and what could he do as a coach? I'm just saying this is probably proving.
I'd say a politician's very similar to a coach, and you saw how long his politics career lasted.
Well, his coaching career has lasted at representative footy.
I think that's more to do with the players than his actual talent.
This Australian run for him is actually showing. I don't think he did much in those Queensland days.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's fair to say. What about Tommy Dearden fielding $1 million plus offers from other clubs, and the Cowboys won't be able to match it?
That's very surprising. Who are the Cowboys giving money to? They've got Drinkwater at the back.
They got Tamalolo on a $10 million,
yeah,
$1 million a
but
year
still,
deal.
I mean, like you should be able to have room in your cap to sign your halves. And Tom Dearden now, he's played Queensland Origin.
Yeah.
He's one of the top tier halves in the comp. He's worth $1 million.
With the increase in salary cap, most quality halves, I'm talking top 10 halves in the game, are going to be on close to $1 million. With Jerome Luai looking to get 800,000 plus, and Penrith saying, "Oh, we might not be able to afford him," he's going to be getting $1 million deals elsewhere. So there's salary cap room for it now. So he's going to get it somewhere.
The Cowboys are just going to do some sort of salary cap gymnastics. They'll find a way to maneuver some salaries to get him his $1 million because there's no way they're going to let him walk. But who are the clubs interested? They haven't really stated who's interested.
Anyone that's looking for a 7, the Dragons, possibly the Bulldogs. I'd say anyone in the bottom 8 teams.
Yeah, I mean
Gold Coast Titans.
He's a quality half and he deserves his money, so pay him.
Then we've got Wayne Bennett. Wayne Bennett is open to other offers from teams other than the Dolphins post this year.
So Wayne Bennett's contract with the Dolphins ends in 2024. He says, "I'm open to still coaching in 2025, whether it be at the Dolphins or whether it be at other teams." They know, I think the Papua New Guinean side's coming in. Maybe he's going to jump on the back of that expansion as well.
But it was just after one season of coaching the Dolphins. He's got new signings coming in. Is that just to get his dollars up, maybe?
I think
Is he just trying to say, look, I'm on the open market. I'm one of the best coaches in the game. Look what I've done with this team. Okay, we've outperformed expectations. So, I don't know. I just think he's getting his dollars up. I mean, he's 70-something years old. I don't think he's doing it for the love of the game anymore. He's just kind of...
It's just negotiation.
Jacking up the price.
He's negotiating.
Yeah.
Okay, he's just trying to get his dollars up. Redcliffe board, they probably said, they probably gave him an offer that he wasn't really happy with. He said, "Hey, I've got options. I can go elsewhere, so pay me or I'll walk."
Joey Manu, set to be offered $1.2 million from the Dragons.
Now, this came out last week. People have called it bullshit, saying he's never going to leave the Roosters, but $1.2 million a season, why wouldn't he?
I heard that they hadn't even spoken to him. They've just said, "Yeah, we'll give him that." But there's been no discussion with Joey Manu. The Dragons have money to throw around. They don't have a really stacked roster.
I think their 5'8" just got sent to jail, so they've got a bit of salary
they've got
cap
some
room.
salary cap movement. So, but if you're Joey Manu, you're not leaving the Roosters. If they've got cap space for Joey Manu, especially with Suaalii gone, if they've got cap space for him, they're going to lock him down. He's one of the best centers in the game.
Where was he playing for New Zealand? Was he
fullback?
I think he was playing a bit more of a
I'm going to be honest,
role.
I didn't watch many of those specific tests, like many others. They're very
But I'm
hard.
saying, if the Dragons can say to him, "Hey, we need a 5'8", or we can get you to play fullback, a more increased role, that gets you more money," he could go. Why wouldn't he? I mean, you've won premierships.
win.
You've won a Pacific Championship now. He's won with New Zealand, won with the Roosters. Move on. Take a new endeavour into your career.
I think he loves the lifestyle in Bondi a little bit too much. There's a tight-knit group over there in Bondi. And also, he's just dropped a new single. I don't know if you've seen on his Instagram. He's dropped, apparently it's the party anthem of the summer. And his music career is taking off. So if he's going to be demanding a lot more money in his music career plus being in Bondi, Dragons going to have to up their price. I don't think they're going to get him. I don't think he's got any interest in going to the
And
Dragons.
as a potential artist, do you want to live in Cogra or Bondi? I think you're going to make more contacts in Bondi. So for his music
100%.
career, he'll stay at the Roosters.
For sure. What about UFC Fighter Pay? This has been a discussion that's been debated over time. Jake Paul's gone at Dana White and says, "You don't pay your fighters, that's why they're taking money fights with me." But there has been some leaks from UFC lawsuits and class action lawsuits against the UFC where Fighter Pay has been leaked for some UFC stars. I'm going to list you some fighter pay. Tell me if you think this is fair, okay? In 2015 to 2016, Conor McGregor made $25 million with the UFC.
That's each
in his
year?
fights. That's 2 fights, right?
So he made $12.5 million each fight.
Not 12.5 million each fight, just an accumulation between the two.
Okay.
Alvarez and the Mendez fight, I'm pretty sure. John Jones, $12.5 million over 7 fights in his career.
That's underpaid.
Okay.
That's underpaid. He's the greatest heavyweight of all time, or greatest light heavyweight
He's
of all
now
time.
the highest paid heavyweight champion in the UFC right now, even though he just out with that chest injury. Brock Lesnar, $8 million to fight Mark Hunt, one match.
That's fair because he's a draw. You're paying him for his
He's a
ability to
massive
draw
draw.
numbers.
He made $8 million in 15 minutes. It's 3 rounds, 5-minute rounds. He won by unanimous decision. Take a copious amount of steroids, beat Mark Hunt, $8 million.
But if you're the UFC and you're having a UFC 200 pay-per-view and you need to draw as much interest as possible, this is your WrestleMania almost. You bring in the stars, and that's what Brock Lesnar is.
Nate Diaz, $7.1 million to fight Conor McGregor twice.
See, he could never complain about not getting paid. The guy can't speak.
He got
can't
paid
sell a
less for
fight.
the first fight. After winning the first fight, got paid near $5 million.
Okay, so that's more it's heavy on the second fight.
Yeah, for sure.
It's fair because you won the first fight and you earned the right to be, you earned the rematch which get you paid. I mean, I feel like though people have kind of swayed public opinion to say that Dana doesn't pay fighters. I feel like he does in comparison to other in comparison to other boxers as well.
Ronda Rousey, $8.4 million over 12 fights.
Yeah, it's a female fighter. You know, what do you expect? There's not much interest there, and she was
a bigger draw than some male fighters.
She's come out and said to people that have said to her, "Oh, why don't you get paid as much as the men?" Or she goes, "Well, I actually earn more than some men. I earn more than this because I've earned it." She's come out and said that she's been paid
She
well.
was a draw, and she is rumored to be on the UFC 300 card. Dana addressed those rumors of Brock and Ronda potentially being on the card. He doesn't see it happening, but it's whispers.
Ronda would not get embarrassed again on live TV. She's lost the last 2 fights in embarrassing fashion.
For $8 million, I would. For $8 million, I would. And what about this one? CM Punk, $1 million to fight Mickey Gall, where he lost in 30 seconds.
I mean, that's unfair. He's on a fighter. He should never have fought in the UFC.
But he was a draw. He brought that WWE crowd to the UFC. People wanted to see how he'd go.
I think he actually ruined any potential WWE stars moving into the UFC for how bad he did. And it was someone that, look, he's scrawny. He didn't really have much muscle behind him. He was never going to go well in the UFC.
So that was some of the UFC fighters' pay that got leaked. We went through them person by person. I'm quite surprised. I just think it means if you build yourself up to be a draw in the UFC and a main event player, you're going to get paid. You might have to eat shit for a while, but if you're going to be like a Sugar Sean O'Malley where you invest in yourself as a brand and a personality and you enjoy the business side of things, you're going to get paid. And that's where he's at as well. We don't have his pay stats, but you have to build yourself up to be a draw. The same goes for boxing as well. If you can't draw a dime in boxing, you're not going to get paid.
These numbers are from 10 years ago as well, so it's a lot.
Not 10, 2016, 2017.
That's okay, what? It's 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
They're a bit ancient in terms of what people get paid now. The business has boomed since then, so fighters will probably get paid a lot more than what these numbers show now as well. And Dana's always reassured people, if fighters weren't happy, they would tell you their pay and they'd make a bigger deal about that. He always says, I pay my fighters, I pay them well. And if you look at people like Hamzat, he thanks Dana every time he has a fight. He says
he's on a reported almost $3 million a fight.
And they say, Dana, give me these fights. I'm very happy. You're making my life a lot better. So people that say they don't get paid, I think Dana does. It's a big lie.
I think in combat sports, yes, you can be the guy that says you'll let your hands do the talking, right? You'll let how you go about the sport do the talking, but the people there's a second element to it. You have to sell yourself.
If you're charismatic, you get paid more.
If you're charismatic and you can play a character, you can play Colby Covington wearing the red hat, or you can play Conor McGregor, you're going to get paid more. And you need to have a personality to make it in the business. So I'm going to stand by it. Credit to Dana. He's paying his fighters. You got to be a draw to earn the money. Now let's go to our top 5, Nick. We've been doing these each week. You can check out our top 5s at the JBK Show on YouTube and at Picklebet on Instagram. This week's top 5 is top 5 lookalikes in sport, starting with number 5.
Anthony Davis and Anthony Davies. He's Arab lookalike. I don't think he's a sporting superstar in Arabia, but Jesus Christ, it's a bloody one-to-one comparison.
This has to be a Photoshop job. That's not.
Anthony Davies. I was scrolling through Twitter and I'm seeing this guy in a full Arabian kit, and I'm thinking, this is Anthony Davis.
The monobrow's 1 for 1.
The monobrow sold me. And I think this guy could potentially have an NBA career if he, thought about coming to the US.
Number 4, we've got Logan Paul and Rodney Peterson. Now, this guy looks so much like Logan Paul that Nate Diaz choked him outside of a nightclub. Choked him out unconscious. He fell on the floor. He was on Logan Paul. He came on Logan Paul's podcast, Impulsive. They do look strikingly similar. They could, if Logan Paul ever needs a body double, Rodney Peterson is the body double.
It's not even the facial features, it's the body size as well. Like he's a similar height, he's a similar weight. He doesn't probably have as much muscle behind him because, Logan Paul's a bit more jacked. Who knows what from. But that takes us to number 3, Mike Bibby. Mike Bibby and Mini-Me. I saw this one recently when I was doing a bit of research for this. It's very similar. You could say Mike Bibby looks like Dr. Evil, but that'd be a compliment to him. He actually looks more like Mini-Me with a bit of a shrunken face. And when you put them side by side next to each other, they look like they belong in a movie together.
Okay, I like it. Number two, Phil Mickelson and Hugh Grant. Now, this one's a compliment. Hugh Grant, Bridget Jones's Diary, heartthrob for a lot of, middle-aged women, I will say. Phil Mickelson, one of the great golfers, they do look a lot alike. You can't deny this one.
I think when I searched Phil Mickelson on Google Images, a lot of Hugh Grant images were showing up, and I couldn't decipher which one was which.
You don't really like Hugh Grant. You say he's annoying.
I hate Hugh
as
Grant.
a British.
I hate Hugh Grant, but I
like
like Phil Mickelson, so I was actually getting confused on which one I like and dislike. So it's very confusing.
Very similar, both good-looking blokes.
But that takes us to number one, the best lookalike in sports, Klay Thompson and Dawson Gurley, also known as Big Dawes. Big Dawes TV, known for, the Golden State Championship run of looking like Klay Thompson, showing up at games, getting shots up sometimes during the game. He looks so much alike to Klay Thompson, he actually went to a finals game, pre-game, snuck into the arena, got some shots up before the game.
As Klay.
As Klay. So much so the police and Golden State had to ban him from Chase Center for life. So he's banned from all Golden State games, but it's well worth it for what he accomplished.
Why don't you bring him, get him involved? He looks that much like Klay. Get them together, get him in a room together. But this guy looks so much like Klay that he parties with people while he's overseas on the Greek islands, convincing people that he is Klay Thompson.
I'm going to say, I don't think he looks like Klay Thompson. The unpopular opinion, I think he's a bit chubbier.
Yeah, but when you're on a night out and you're pissed off your head, that's Klay Thompson.
The goatee is what sold it. I think now that Klay Thompson doesn't have the goatee anymore, it's tough to make them look similar.
Well, that's our top 5 lookalikes for this week's top 5 lookalikes in sport. Make sure you subscribe to the JBK Show and following along at Picklebet over on Instagram and Pickle Studios on TikTok. Nick, I feel like after the Melbourne Cup, right, the Cricket World Cup's on right now, but there's not a lot massively going on in sport right now. But the big thing that's coming up this weekend is UFC 295.
295, Alex Pereira versus Yuri Prohaska, the big light heavyweight
Was
fight.
originally the co-main event with John Jones fighting Stipe Miocic. Now it's elevated to the main event with John Jones out.
And it's a worthy main event. I think Alex Pereira is still one of the scariest people in UFC. And now that he's going up a weight division, he's looking so much more jacked. Like, you just think the power he had against Adesanya in that division, to be able to go up now, if he's got a bit more weight behind him, you're going to be knocked out if you're going to be versing him. So Yuri Prohaska is a great fighter, former champion. So I think he's the favourite. He should be the favourite going into this fight because he's had more experience in that division. But if you're Alex Pereira and you're a fan of Pereira, I think you think he can get the job done. And I'm putting my money on Pereira to get it done by knockout.
Pereira by TKO before round 5.
I'm going to say before round 3.
Okay.
First 3 rounds is going to knock him out. That's my best pick of the day.
I like it. Make sure you're tuning in to UFC 295. We've got an announcement coming up as well around the UFC, so make sure you keep an eye out on that. EPL, Tottenham finally lose. You've been calling it all season. You've been death riding them. You just been like, guys, it's a long season. Please just wait. They're going to lose and fall off. Yes, they've been undefeated, but this is what is usually the case with teams that get off to a flyer at the start of the season.
It's just not the case for a team that gets off to a flyer, just a team that overachieves. And I love Ange and I love what he's doing, but the squad that they have, they're not that good. And it's finally coming. It's finally happened. They finally lost that game that I said they were going to lose. It took a lot longer than I thought it would be. But they're no longer top of the table. Manchester City are now top of the table after flogging 6-1 their opponent, and Haaland didn't even score a goal.
6-1.
Liverpool somehow drew against Luton.
And Arsenal losing controversial fashion to Newcastle.
Let's not talk about that. It makes me sad because if you saw Mikel Arteta after the game, he said it as it was, that this stuff shouldn't be happening in the EPL. But I think Ange post-game was more of a humble in defeat. He actually said, look, calls go our way, calls don't go our way. I'm not going to complain about it post-game. And I really, really like the way he said that because ultimately, if you're a team in the EPL, don't leave it down to a couple calls to decide how the game's going to go.
That really heats up the Premier League standings, but with Man City back in 1, how do you see it playing out going forward?
I think Arsenal, as long as Man City are at top of the table, they're going to win the Premier League. They've got too much talent. They've got too much depth. Arsenal, I think, they play a good brand of football, but they're always going to be chasing. They're going to need some luck for them to actually break through and get on top of Man City. But it's only those 2 teams. Everyone else, I think, is dropping off.
This one around NFL. Aaron Rodgers, okay, he's come out and been caught on a hot mic and said he's expected back in a few weeks. Now, mind you, this bloke is supposed to have torn his Achilles. The same injury that Kobe Bryant had, same injury that Kevin Durant had. Torn Achilles, you're looking at 9 months on the sideline. Apparently, he's way ahead of schedule and could be back in the NFL in a couple of weeks. I'm going to give you a hot tip. He never tore his Achilles.
That's
It's fake.
Well, that was reported initially when he did the injury. That said, was it an Achilles tear? Was it not? Was it maybe just a partial Achilles tear? But then it came out, he got surgery, so it had to be an Achilles tear. But then like 2 weeks later, he's already walking. He's already, pre-game throwing on the field.
He's on the moon boot throwing.
And then now he's been caught with Derwin James pre-game saying, hey, I might be back in a couple of weeks. Derwin James asking, hey, when are you back? He goes, a couple of weeks. Now, he might have been said it jokingly. He might have said
maybe
it
it's
as
like
a joke.
back at training and moving with the boys in a couple of weeks.
But
You don't know.
if you're a New York Jets fan, you're praying for his return. And I'm an Aaron Rodgers fan, so I've been waiting for it. I was devastated when he got injured. And I think he's actually...
I might think if he faked an Achilles tear and it's not really an Achilles tear and this is all for media, I don't know what it is. But there's also the money element that's involved because he's on a 2-year deal, right? He wants his guaranteed money for next season as well. So he probably has to get back by a certain time as well.
I don't think
so.
he's
I
driven
think
by
that could be rushing him as well. I don't know. I can't see someone who's allegedly torn their Achilles full tear coming back that quickly.
Well, he did say he was doing experimental treatments. It wasn't the usual conventional way of healing.
What's he doing?
Achilles.
Body cloning or some bullshit?
I don't know.
The Arnold Schwarzenegger
I don't
film?
know. Maybe put a whole hamstring in his Achilles. I don't know. He's somehow doing it, and I hope he comes back.
Speaking of other NFL players, our boy Jordan Mailata was on the Heights Up podcast, New Heights.
New Heights podcast with Kelsey Brothers.
With the Kelsey brothers, Travis Kelsey and Jason Kelsey, his brother who plays with Jordan.
Jason Kelsey, funny enough, voted one of the hottest men in the world.
The sexiest man alive. I don't see. He looks like Santa Claus. He's got like the big beard and.
Maybe people like that. I don't know.
Anyway, Jordan Mailata was on the New Heights podcast with Travis Kelsey and Jason Kelsey. They asked him flat out, rugby league or NFL, what is harder? Now, if you're asking Jordan that, me immediately, and as fans of rugby league, I'd say rugby league's harder. It's collisions non-stop. It's 80 minutes. You got to be a front rower that's, defending all game, running back, taking your carries it's 80 minutes. Some front rowers play 80 minutes. Jordan Mailata, who's played both, says being in the offensive and defensive line is harder than playing rugby league, which I didn't expect. I
expected that because offensive line is one of the dirtiest positions in sports. You got to be overweight. You're constantly colliding every single play of the game. You got to be moving. You're so susceptible to doing a leg injury. You see the movie with Will Smith, the CTE one. They're copping that many collisions to their helmet, to their heads.
They call it a mini car crash. That's what he said in the podcast. And then he also said, we have padding on, but the padding doesn't do shit. He goes, there's a thin layer on your sternum of padding that doesn't do anything, and you're copping shots to that every 40 seconds. He goes, it's painful. He goes, the padding just makes people able to hit harder.
But I will say it depends on the position. Outside of offensive and defensive line, a rugby league player or even a rugby union player, the play is more physical. You're more likely to have more bigger collisions. There's a 10-meter defensive line. There's people running against each other with no padding. A winger, okay, maybe he hangs out on the wing, doesn't have many collisions. But a wide receiver or, a quarterback, yes, they get hit sometimes. But compared to a rugby league player, it's much more physical.
Even a running back who's evading a lot.
And then you got to add the aspect of the NFL. It's very stop and start, very slow. Rugby league's very quick. It's always moving.
It's non-stop.
Your endurance has got to be through the roof. So you add that aspect of fatigue to an already physical game. I think Jordan's wrong.
I wouldn't say he's wrong because if anyone's going to know, he's going to know. And then on the transition aspect, he said it's easier for an NFL player to transition into rugby league than a rugby league player to transition to the NFL.
I agree with that.
Firstly, I think he said it's a little too complicated and the athletes are a lot better.
We've seen it happen as well. We've seen a couple rugby league players go over. There's just too many intricacies within American football.
I'd say
where you can't transition.
If you're looking for a Jordan Mailata equivalent, you're looking at Taniela Paseka, you're looking at Nelson Asafa Solomona. Could those players transition potentially and do what Jordan do? But your wingers, your centers, your fullbacks, they might find it a lot more difficult because the athletes that are over there are the best of the best.
I think NFL athletes are the best of the best. So if they were brought up in rugby league from a young age, they would take over the sport.
But we're not talking if they're brought up. If they're transitioning, like how Jordan did.
I actually think it would be harder because they're not used to the game. They wouldn't have the ball skills. Ball skills in rugby league is one of the biggest things. In NFL, you can be someone that doesn't touch the ball.
You can say that, but this guy has first-hand experience and has seen how to transition into the NFL and what it takes to transition in the NFL. And the Kelsey brothers agreed with him. They said, yes, it's not. It's one of the toughest sports in the world.
I see. As much as I think there's athletes like Derrick Henry or even Julio Jones in his prime.
Fournette.
As much as they're physical specimens, they would not be able to transition to rugby league because they don't know how to play the game. They wouldn't be able to pass the ball. They wouldn't even know how to take a hit up properly because they're not used to that collision.
But I feel like it's a lot easier to understand.
Yeah,
a lot easier to understand. What?
But I think
5 tackles, just go right in behind the ruck. Evan Fournette just bang behind the ruck. It's not very hard to learn.
Tamalolo could easily transition to a player. He's got the size to fit in, whether an offensive or defensive line. I think defenders in the NFL are completely retarded, so there's easier for them to go into the defensive line. So I don't see what, like, you see a player get leaped over in the NFL. That's never happening in rugby league.
Yeah.
That just shows you the skill level and the intelligence of players.
Okay, well, that's Jordan Mailata's opinion on NFL versus the NRL. What was tougher? Jordan Mailata gave his 2 cents. But that's all from us today at Prime Time. Make sure you're keeping an eye out on our socials this week. We've got a big announcement coming up. We'll be teasing that. It's going to be a big few days. Big bang into a big year already, but the last 2 months are going to be big. We're going to be on the road, so just putting a little teaser out there. But that's all from us at Prime Time. Back to you in the studio, George.